Yeah, did you just actually? I don't know. While you were talking, I was actually focusing on the Thor ship in the back. I took out another queen. This Thor has 46 kills right now, and looking at the resources lost, I've lost 150 in resources. I believe that's just one unit, and Broken Rhythm has lost 2,975 in resources, including buildings and units. Just most of it coming from my Thor ship, some of it from the hatchery as well. And I'm continually scouting with this floating barracks. I'm just gonna try. My only goal in this game is try to make sure he's not gonna expand because I know that one base Zerg is awful and two base Zerg against two base Terran is when I definitely have the advantage. Now, one thing I want to look for is Mutalisks. So getting that Thor early kind of deters Zerg players from getting Mutalisks, and Speedling Mutalisk is incredibly strong, even with the Thor, just because of the mobility of the Mutalisk. You really can't move out with the Thor if you need to constantly defend your base. And once you get critical mass of the Mutalisk, it's extremely hard to actually move out. So I usually like to get a Thor first just to deter Zerg players from getting Mutalisk, and I always like to attack before a Zerg player does get a critical amount of Mutalisk, so he's forced to use Mutalisk to defend instead of harass me. But actually, Broken Rhythm finally getting smart now going to be loading up units into his Overlord and dropping. Unfortunately, did not drop enough. Only dropped 6 Zerglings, and 6 Zerglings, regardless of what Husky says that Zerglings are good against Thors, 6 Zerglings is definitely not enough. And he actually did some Hydralisk play right there, almost killing my Thor. I think my Thor had one more shot before it died, and so did my Medevac with the 31 health right now. And I'm going to start moving out, capturing my Zelnaga tower. I'm comfortable at this point with my army, and my macro is horribly out of control right now. 1800 minerals, 700 gas, and I'm constantly being supply locked.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, with all that APM that you have being dedicated to that Thor harassment, your economy looks like it's suffering just a little bit. But there are still a huge amount of Zerglings coming out from Broken Rhythm right now. And he does have the Infestor tech up and running. I'm not sure why he has not yet gotten an Infestor with Neural Parasite, because if he would do a Neural Parasite on the Thor, then he could easily take his Zerglings around, do us around, and take it out rather quickly. Of course, Neural Parasite is one of the best counters for Thor, because if you can take that powerful unit, the control of that powerful unit away from the Terran player, then it becomes much, much easier to take down, obviously. And of course, in a large battle, turning that unit onto your side can be the game changing move that really turns a battle in your favor. So that's definitely something I would look for him to use here in the future. Of course, you are using a lot of mech in conjunction with your Marines here, and using just one or two infestors in the mix of that to do some neural parasite or fungal growth is absolutely crucial, which as of right now, all I see on the map from him are Zerglings and Hydralisks. So I'm definitely interested to see if he gets that going a little bit. But as you mentioned, one base Zerg is bad, and two base Zerg versus two base Terran is pretty rough position to be in as well. And keep in mind too that with the amount of harassment that he sustained at his natural expansion, he was really only one basing for a while, because you did take away his second expansion at the natural for the 12 o'clock position.
Yeah, and there's actually a big battle going on at his Zelnag tower. The forces I moved in were definitely not enough. He had his Zerglings surround my Thors, and I lost the majority of my siege tanks in that exchange, but I think Broken Rhythm literally lost every single Zergling he had. I had about 5 siege tanks, and those siege tanks just did absolute work on those Zerglings. Looking at the units lost right now, he actually recovered quite a bit. Right now, I did lose my majority of my army due to my terrible macro, but I actually only lost, or I only have half the amount of resources lost compared to him. Most of that, of course, was due to my Hero Thor actually getting repaired back at my base right now. So that Hero Thor is a commander, 58 unit kills. He is a hero of the Terran Dominion. And right now, my macro is actually not that bad. I actually, my income is almost comparable to his. He is getting his third right now, but once my meals kick in, I should be having more income, and it looks like I do, but my macro is still horribly out of position. I have SEVs idle all over the place, 1700 minerals, 300 gas. I'm keeping my gas fairly low, actually. I do think I'm a little bit gas like putting down 2 more factories because I just don't know what to do with my money. And I'm actually building an expansion. Oh, sorry. I'm actually building an expansion at the 6 o'clock position. Looking at the armies right now, I do have the greater army just because I am making and Broken Rhythm getting Hydralisks and Banelings not the best choice, especially because Hydralisks are just terrible against everything that comes out of the factory. Hellions do bonus damage against Hydralisks. Siege tanks against Hydralisks is a huge joke, and Thor's 2-shot Hydralisks.
Yeah, absolutely. Given the unit composition that you have, I really think that going speedlings with roaches would probably be a better option. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, having some infestors to use that neural parasite, and especially some fungal growth on the infantry and the Hellions even would be good, because Hellions, since they are very quick, if you can get some fungal growth on those, taking them out with roaches becomes very, very easily if they cannot maneuver around the roaches.
Definitely, and right now at this point, I'm just using Marines and Hellions basically as a unit sink because I know that, or a mineral sink because I know that I need to spend minerals and I really need tanking units for my Thors and siege tanks right now, and I'm actually lagging a little bit, so I'm gonna pause right here. Sorry about that, guys. My FPS was actually lagging for a really bit, but I was saying that I really like to use Hellions and Marines in the front line to tank because the siege tanks and Thors will be doing the majority of my damage, even against speedlings. I think Hellions and Thors, or Hellions and siege tanks, do fairly equally well against the speedlings, and if I have Hellions surrounding, or at least in the front of my Thor, siege tank, and Marine line, they will be able to clean up the front line of Zerglings fairly well, especially with a Pre-Igniter, as I think 5 or 6 in a huge ball of Hellions would just decimate Zerglings. And looking at Broken Rhythm, he's actually doing the smart thing, getting Broodlords, and Broodlords just become a huge problem to a mech army build, especially against Thors, because Thors do bonus against light and not against heavy, and Broodlords are the only heavy air unit that Zerg has, so Thors, right now, I'm just using them only for anti-air, and Marines aren't that good against Broodlords just because of the Broodlings. They just do heavy damage to those Marines without Marines actually even getting close, just because Broodlings do occupy space. Right now, Broken Rhythm is moving out to Broodlords, and I do think a battle is about to start.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw just the first couple Broodlings there spawning caused his siege tanks to fire on his own units, which is very unfortunate for him. And those Broodlords actually taking a lot of fire from the Thors. He does not have his Hydras up in the front or any Speedlings defending with that. But it looks like for the time being, he is going to have to retreat because he does not have enough Broodlords to take on that army using solely Broodlords. But he is getting more, and right now he is actually saturating the high yield base here pretty well. So if you take a look at the income right now, you can see that he is slightly ahead, only about 1 to 200 minerals, although it looks like you just had some mules kick in, so you've taken the lead for a brief second there. But meanwhile, Broken Rhythm is actually getting up a third expansion, so trying to keep those expansions up and running. And I actually just noticed too that you do have a command center floating over to that high yield base down on your side of the map, so it looks like both of you expanding pretty regularly across the map. And I do see that Broken Rhythm has his Broodlords moving over to your base, so going to try to do a little bit of backdoor harassment possibly. But there are 2 Vikings, and with no anti-air support with those Broodlords, they are going to be in some serious trouble here.
Yeah, definitely. Vikings are just so hilarious to watch against Broodlords. They do bonus damage against them, and they kill them so quickly for their cost. And Vikings also do counter Corruptors, which is kind of funny because if you have a balanced Terran army, there's really no way you can fight a 200-200 Terran army with a 200-200 Zerg army with winning. Just because, and some of you might say that that's imbalanced because most of you, I've seen a lot of forum posts saying that Terran mech is imbalanced. But the thing is that Zerg should have out macro Terran by then, so the benefit of playing the Zerg player is that you can actually rebuild your army much quickly than the Terran player. And the problem with going Mutalisks against Vikings is that Mutalisks are fairly good against Vikings for their cost, but Thors just eat up Mutalisks so badly, and because of the long range of the Thors missiles and the Vikings missiles, it becomes very hard to use Mutalisks effectively against Vikings. Broken Rhythm right now moving with a fairly small Roach, Hydra, Broodling army, and we're gonna see a battle right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking lots of damage in those Hydras. All of those Hydras just absolutely getting smoked by the tank line. And now the Broodlords, the only units left standing in Broken Rhythm's army. And between the Vikings and the Thors, those Broodlords are just going to go down super quick, not really doing enough damage. So it looks like Broken Rhythm is going to once again be bested in this battle. But he, as you mentioned, since the Zerg does have a little bit better macro capability as far as rebuilding their army quicker, especially with that spawn larva capability, he is going to be able to macro up a decent sized army once again here pretty quickly. However, looking at your Terran army here, you're actually at 157, and the Zerg player Broken Rhythm is actually only at 139. So he is behind by about 20 supply right now, which is definitely not where you want to be in a Zerg army, because as you mentioned, maxed out supply for both races, Terran's going to win that battle pretty much every time, and Broken Rhythm apparently rage quitting.
Definitely. I think Broken Rhythm was pretty mad because this was one of the first few games he played Zerg since Phase 1. He was a random player in Phase 1 and he switched primarily to Protoss in Phase 2. So before you guys start saying Broken Rhythm is an awful Zerg player, yes, I agree, but he is a good player in general because he is actually a 525 rating diamond in 1v1, which is very very difficult to get. He is ranked 63 in the US server in 1v1 based on his or based on just his Protoss play actually. So I actually just wanted to show off this game not because of my awful macro and Broken Rhythm's poor Zerg play, but mainly because of the Thor harassment. I actually named this replay Thor is Gay, which is a parody of Thor is here because of just how much damage the Thor did to Broken Rhythm's initial economy. And as you can see, you can even move the Thor to the gold expansion and start picking off drones there too. So just the power of the Thor on the ledges and Lost Temple is hugely exploitable. Any last thoughts or any last thoughts, Akaya?
No thoughts on the game. Definitely check out my channel though, youtube.com/scbattlegrounds if you guys haven't seen it. And of course, if you have any good replays or anything that you think are worth casting, feel free to send them to either me or Lisa on the YouTube channel, and we will probably be doing more dual casts in the future. So definitely keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, and just send them to Akaya because I don't really want them. All right, see you guys later.